And now apparently they're working on How to Train Your Dragon as well, a live action version. That's the perfect example of why it will never work. Because the dragons in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, they're incredibly silly, they're incredibly fun looking and weird looking. There is no way it's gonna work in live action mode.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart, and today we're doing something quite fun and weird because I wanted to rant a little bit. I wanted to complain. I wanted to tell you about movies that I would never see even if you paid me for it. Because honestly, I think that there are some movies that are just not meant to be seen. There are just some movies that are not meant to be supported at the cinemas, on streaming, or even illegally. I'm not even kidding. Honestly, we need to take a little bit of an accountability when it comes to the movies that are being produced and being put out there, because there is an actual audience for it, and at the end of the day they make a shit ton of money. So instead of complaining on Twitter, actually try to convince people not to go and watch it and not to support that kind of movie that you don't like and that you think shouldn't exist. I'm starting already with a huge rant without even telling you what I'm talking about, and this is why I decided to divide all of my reasons into 6 categories to make it very clear and simple for each and every one of you. We're gonna be starting with something quite fun, which is called sequels slash requels slash reboots of incredibly dead franchises, or even things that are not even meant to be franchises at the end of the day just because they had a very successful first movie. I have a lot of movies in my list when it comes to this category. The last 2 Transformers movies are on that category, for example. I didn't watch Transformers the last night, and I'm definitely not gonna watch Transformers, whatever the name of the new one is. Age of the Dinosaur? Is it like an Ice Age thing? Like, I'm so incredibly confused. But I really think that the Transformers movies don't have anything to offer anymore, and I'm kind of pissed off that people keep going and watching those. But those are not the only movies that I complain about. I complain also about Fast and Furious movies. There is nothing on earth that is gonna convince me to watch Fast 10. I don't want to give you like any kind of breakdown. I don't want to give you a rant for it because I know I'm gonna be disappointed. And you know, sometimes, whether you're a film critic, whether you're just a cinephile, whether you're a normal person just standing in the middle of the road, there are some movies that just, if you don't want to watch them, don't watch them. Like, don't force yourself just because you want to be part of the conversation. And Fast 10 is one of those. I don't care at all about Vin Diesel anymore, and especially about this IP. And I probably stopped caring even 2 movies ago. It's basically when Paul Walker completely walked out of the picture.
You'll always be with me.
Change the game without even knowing.
And you'll always be my brother.
Other good examples would be Maleficent 2. They really need to have a Maleficent 2? I don't think so. The new Robert Downey Jr. Dolittle movie. I mean, this franchise has been rebooted like 3 times, I think, because the original, I think it's from the 60s or 50s or something like that. Then it was rebooted with Eddie Murphy, and I actually grew up with those movies and they were quite cute. And then it got rebooted again with Robert Downey Jr. Like, I mean, this concept is so incredibly straightforward. Why do you need to recycle it over and over again? Just put it to rest. Never gonna watch that movie because I know it's completely just stupid and a waste of time.
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Then I start to taste them. I say, and then I start to smell them. So it's like a smell that tastes like I was like,
The next movie in this category is probably gonna be a bit controversial because it's Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny. I actually liked the trailer, and then I was forced to watch it when I went to see Across the Spider-Verse a couple of weeks ago. I'm intrigued, but at the end of the day, I know I'm not gonna enjoy it because I don't like Indiana Jones as a character. So maybe this is a very personal thing. And you can just be mean in the comments if you want, but like, I don't think Indiana Jones is an interesting character. I'd rather be watching Milo from Atlantis, for example, or any kind of other nerdy adventurer. The Librarian. Have you seen the Librarian movies? Go watch the Librarian movies instead of supporting yet another tired Indiana Jones movie starring a really weird looking CGI young Harrison Ford.
That belongs in a museum.
So do you!
And the last one in this category is actually incredibly fun because it's Jack Reacher Never Go Back. Every single time I look at the poster of this movie, I'm almost entirely convinced that it's the first movie and the sequel doesn't even exist. That's how unnecessary this sequel was. I can't even tell it apart from the original movie. Why? I don't know. It would be like making a sequel to Edge of Tomorrow. Like, it makes no sense. It would just be dumb. It doesn't deserve to exist and it definitely doesn't deserve your time. I have a couple of really good movies in this category that I refuse to watch because I know that I'm not gonna have a good time, I'm not gonna enjoy the humor, the animation style is not gonna be interesting, and at the end of the day I almost get angry at the fact that adults have to sit in front of these movies and give reviews.
Goo goo gaga.
No!
What does it matter whether we like these kind of movies or not? They're clearly not made for us, so I don't get it. A good example would be DC League of Super Pets. Incredibly dumb movie, I really don't want to watch it. Another good example is Boss Baby. I think I watched it actually, but I don't remember a single thing about it. Or maybe I've seen so many memes going around on the internet that I have this weird, like almost like Mandela effect, where I'm convinced, or I convinced myself that I watched Boss Baby even though I really didn't watch it. It's possible as well. Then we've got things like the Emoji Movie and the Angry Birds movie, which are just two of the most stupid movies I've ever not watched, of course. And then we've got the most recent adaptation of The Grinch, which just looked incredibly bad. I made the mistake a couple of times of going into animated movies that were clearly aimed at like young children, and I got really pissed off. So I don't want to get pissed off at movies that are not clearly made for me, if you know what I mean. If you feel the same, just let me know. If you have other animated movies that you refuse to watch because you know they're gonna hate them, just let me know, but this is my list. My third category is gonna be quite interesting, and that's why I put this movie behind me right here. I'm kind of done with those, and I'm not even talking 50 Shades of Grey bad. I'm talking those movies that pretended to be like standard romantic comedies, standard erotic dramas, but they end up being so incredibly cliche and standard that they kind of like make an entire mess. They end up being not sex positive at all. They are archaic at the end of the day. You just look at them and you're like, this movie belongs in 2003 or even the 1990s. That's how bad it is. And a good example would be the franchise of After. Other 2 or 3 movies in the franchise, maybe even 4, I don't even know. I don't want to watch it, and I don't want anyone to watch it because I know this is incredibly bad. I've seen reviews of it. I know this is disgusting and it doesn't deserve to exist. Other movies in the same category, you've got 365 Days, which came out on Netflix a couple of years ago, and I think even last year they came out with 2 sequels in the same year. Absolutely insane. It's a really bad movie.
Are you lost, baby girl?
And then we have romantic comedies like Me Before You. No, thank you. I don't want anyone to actually believe in that kind of shit where you almost like deleting your personality and your persona completely to take care of the person that you love. And the fact that there are still movies out there that are like romanticizing this kind of shit, it's just not funny. It's almost dangerous at the end of the day. And then another example I had in mind was the movie What Men Want, which is basically the gender banned version of this movie here that came out in the 90s. This movie is still sexist, of course, but it has a bit of a charm, mostly because I think men have a really hard time understanding women, so this movie is taking the piss out of that by allowing a man to actually hear women's thoughts. But if you gender ban that, it just doesn't really work because men are not that hard to comprehend at the end of the day, and I just really hate the fact of like people getting into each other's bodies and like listening to each other's thoughts instead of communicating with each other. I feel like it's one of those weird like narrative tropes that doesn't work that much, and at the end of the day, even in real life, it's kind of toxic because it's kind of signaling that you don't want to make the effort to actually communicate with people. You just want to hear what they're thinking and adapt to that and be the perfect version of what they actually expect from you. There are so many romantic comedies like this at the end of the day. These are just a couple of examples. The next category really pisses me off because of course I'm talking about Do you know, for example, that there is an American version of the South Korean movie Parasite that is in the production right now? What is wrong with you? Like, I have no idea. Like, people really have a hard time reading subtitles in 2023. That's insane. And they want to do the same thing with the movie Druck, which is starring Mads Mikkelsen. It's called Another Round, I think, in the US. Once again, no. The first movie is already good. If you want actual examples, of course, you could look at movies like A Man Called Otto, which was just incredibly forgettable and really bad casting for Tom Hanks as well. You can even have a look at The Guilty, for example, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. The Danish movie is incredibly good. It's accessible. I think I found it on Netflix as well. Just go watch that one. There is no sense at all trying to watch those other remakes. And then you've got The Upside, starring Bryan Cranston, that I refuse to watch categorically because the French movie Intouchable is actually quite good. It's quite accessible. It's very popular. It's very universal as well when it comes to its themes. So it makes no sense for the other American version to actually exist. You can have other examples like Funny Game, but that's almost like an experimental thing because it's the same director who literally made his own remake and they kind of exist on the same wavelength but in different multiverses. So that's a way of doing an American remake in a way that it actually works. But if you try to make like movies that are already incredibly good, then it makes no sense at all. And especially if you don't want to contextualize it within a different context so that it ends up being a little bit more interesting at the end of the day. There is no way you're gonna be making a movie that is actually genuine, that is actually well grounded, if you are completely distanced and if you're trying to turn it into a spectacle. There is a movie by Clint Eastwood that came out a couple of years ago, which is called 1517, and it was about basically a terrorist attack going on a train. I refuse to watch that movie because I know exactly what it's gonna be about, and I know exactly that I'd rather watch a documentary and it's gonna be 100% more interesting. You also have movies like 22 July, which was directed by Paul Greengrass. And once again, we have a Norwegian movie which exists, it's incredibly good, and it's called Utoya, July 22nd, and it's directed by Eric Poppe, so just watch that one. I understand that biopics tend to make like quite a lot of money, but if there is already one version that is good enough, don't make another one. It makes no sense at all. Americans seem to be so obsessed about telling other people's stories. Why do you do that? Why do you keep taking advantage of other people's national histories and tragedies? It's incredibly weird. I think you need to go to therapy, America. And the last category, it's gonna be, I mean, you've seen it coming. You know what I'm gonna be talking about, right? Because I try to rant about this almost every single week if I can. Maybe I haven't done it in an official video, but I have done it to my friends and to myself, just in weird monologues that only I can hear and appreciate. I'm of course talking about fuck those. I can count the good ones on literally just one hand or even maybe two fingers. 101 Dalmatians and Pete's Dragon. For me, those are the only two good ones. Even though 101 Dalmatians, it's good only because it's literally just like a different version of Home Alone. Because visually speaking, the animated movie is so much better.
Mr. Ville.
Yes?
We have a warrant for your arrest.
Oh. Is there something wrong?
I've refused to watch a lot of live action remakes across the years and they make so much money. So much money. I think the Lion King remake is like one of the biggest box office successes of all time. It's absolutely insane. Like, I need you to go in the comments right now and let me know what is so incredibly interesting about live action remakes, because every single time that I talk to people, they complain about them and they don't want to watch them or support them. Just let me know because I'm confused. Do you just bring your children to them? Are you like a millennial who grew up with the original animated cartoons and you're like, I want my child to have the same exact experience but like the eBay version? What is wrong with you? But I'm talking specifically about movies like Aladdin, Cinderella, Dumbo, I mean most of them, right? When they go straight to Disney Plus, it's even worse. If you think about Lady and the Tramp and the recent David Lowery movie Peter Pan and Wendy as well. And then of course you got Little Mermaid, which came out just a couple of weeks ago, and listen, I understand that some some people are really appreciating the diversity and that it is important at the end of the day. So go support it if you think it's a good idea, but at the end of the day I'm not gonna watch it because I know that it's never gonna be at the same level as the animated movie. When you think about it, certain movies and certain stories are animated for a very specific reason. Very often it's because the stories are just too cartoonish and too weird to actually be developed in live action format and to actually be cool at the end of the day. Think about Hercules, for example. Hercules has so many weird creatures and changes in tones, there is no way that it can work as a live action movie. Mulan as well. Unfortunately for me, I actually watched Mulan, the live action version, and it was incredibly boring, especially compared to the animated version. I just don't get it, but they're making a lot of money and that's why they keep making it, because they know that there is no potential behind it. Because the animated movies, they work because of how fantastic they are, because of how creative they are, and how beautiful they are and colorful as well, and they never managed to recreate that at all. Even Beauty and the Beast, at the end of the day, even though it has like a lush production design and cinematography, it just doesn't feel like the animated version because it's such a silly story that works only within the format that it actually originated with. And now apparently they're working on How to Train Your Dragon as well, a live action version. That's the perfect example of why it will never work, because the dragons in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, they're incredibly silly, they're incredibly fun looking and weird looking. There is no way it's gonna work in live action mode. Like, think about the last time that you saw a very silly dragon. I mean, maybe in like Honor Among Thieves, like Dungeons and Dragons a couple of months ago, but it was just one. Here we have an entire movie that is based on silly dragons. It's not gonna work. And that's why I decided to put it as my last category, because it's the most obvious at the end of the day. Almost everyone that I know complains about this, but then somehow you just go still out there, pay the ticket, go to the cinema.
Your intellect is as weak as your dollar. Failure is your destiny. You disrespect yourself and your nation. You are made of stupid.
I haven't paid to watch any single one of them. Even the ones that I felt forced to watch, I didn't pay. I just waited for them to come out on Disney Plus, or I did something weird and illegal. Anyways, those are all the movies that I wanted to talk about today. Let me know down in the comments what your lists are. If you're a subscriber, you're probably used to this, right? This is where basically I'm telling you, look at how many things I have on my channel. Look at this thing right next to my face, and look at this one right above here, which is what we're gonna be talking about next week. If you come back to this channel, it's gonna be quite exciting. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Let's go back to Big Patrick. Anyways, thank you for sticking with me, doing some weird stuff today. We're not talking about news, so these kind of videos tend to be pushed down by YouTube and the algorithm. So if you enjoyed me ranting about movies that I will never watch out of my own weird principles, then share it around with your friends and stuff. It would be really nice. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like that you drop will go to the animators out there, whether they're working for DreamWorks, whether they're working for Laika, whether they're working for Disney, why not as well? Because I feel like just by creating all of these weird live action remakes, we're kind of like ruining the memory of the originals, and we're kind of also implying that there is something missing about the original movies, and I really don't think so. I feel like there are so many people who look down on animation these days, and if you just look at Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, you know how incredibly powerful the animation genre can be. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
There are 3 genders, 4 genders, even 5.
Da 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 da